I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. The Proud Boys Seditious Conspiracy trial is now underway in Washington, D.C. federal court following the successful prosecution for seditious conspiracy of the Oath Keepers a few weeks back, and currently prosecuting the next batch of Oath Keepers for seditious conspiracy as well. The Proud Boys terrorist organization is now up. Jury selection commenced on Monday. We can expect testimony to begin at the beginning of the new year in January of 2023. But after numerous attempts by the Proud Boys to try to get the criminal case against them dismissed, and after numerous rejections of their motion to dismiss by the presiding judge of this case, Judge Timothy Kelly, the case has started. We are in jury selection. To remind you who are the key players in this case, or I should say the key terrorists in this case, the Proud Boy defendants include Enrique Tarrio, who is the longtime chairman of the Proud Boys terrorist organization, Ethan Nordian, who is the Proud Boys leader from Washington State, Joseph Biggs, who is the Proud Boys leader from Florida, Zachary Rell, who ran the Philadelphia chapter of the Proud Boys, and Dominic Pizzola, who is often called Spaz or Spazzo or Spazzolini, who is a leader in the New York Proud Boys chapter. Now, this Proud Boys terrorist trial is interesting on a number of levels. It's interesting because of the serious seditious conspiracy charges being brought. But one of the reasons that I'm very focused on it as well is that there are really direct links here between the Proud Boys' terroristic actions on January 6th and leading up to it, and directly to the Trump White House at the time. Now, how close are these links, and what do I mean by links with the White House? Well, I'm going to pull up right now a photograph of Enrique Tarrio. These are two photos taken from December 12th of 2020, leading up to the insurrection. These were posted on a right-wing social media site that I have no interest in promoting here. And Enrique Tarrio says, "Last-minute invite to an undisclosed location. Wow, I'm in awe. Trump 2020." And it's a photo of himself in front of the White House front door, where virtually no one gets access to that. But here, Donald Trump invited a terrorist, a white supremacist, to the front of the White House and saying, "Last-minute invite to an undisclosed location." And then he was apparently taken up to the top floor where the residence is, also on December 12th, and said, "Never thought I'd be here." Well, that's a big understatement, that a terrorist being on the top of the White House balcony saying, "Never thought I'd be here." So did the rest of the United States of America, that we would not have a president who himself was a terrorist, who would invite terrorists to walk around the White House, one of the most important buildings symbolically and practically speaking for our democracy, and let you just walk around and take photos. But that meeting was at a time where the Proud Boys had created another organization related to the Proud Boys called the Ministry of Self-Defense. And the Ministry of Self-Defense, its purpose was supposed to be a top-down hierarchical entity of some of the 90 most dangerous people who didn't give a crap, some of the people who were just as dangerous as can be, coming together, forming this Ministry of Defense, people who had no qualms about overthrowing our democracy, who didn't care about any of the repercussions, people who represented literally the worst of the worst of the worst within the organization, became handpicked part of the Ministry of Self-Defense with the purpose of overthrowing the United States of America's peaceful transition of power on January 6th. And so as the Ministry of Self-Defense, this terrorist organization is forming next to, assisted by the Proud Boys, being led by Tarrio and the other defendants in this case, he's getting invited to the White House. Now, one of the key allies that he had in the White House, a conduit between him and the White House, is believed to be Roger Stone, who's pled the Fifth as well before the January 6th committee, and who no doubt Jack Smith is also very focused on here. Now, on January 4th, Enrique Tarrio got arrested for burning a Black Lives Matter flag in front of a church, because one of the things that the Ministry of Self-Defense was trying to do is they were trying to cause others to counter-protest them. They were trying to draw people in to create a situation where there could be ambiguity between who would be there on January 6th. They were trying to create a riot that never materialized, and Enrique Tarrio was arrested on the 4th, and he was ordered by a court to leave Washington, D.C. He was caught plotting after the fact with other leaders of the Ministry of Self-Defense, other leaders of the Proud Boys, who are now named in this case as defendants as well. And then he left, so he wasn't in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. The others were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, but they were all in communication through encrypted text messages, which the Department of Justice has access to, which is going to play a major part of this case. Nordian, Biggs, and Rel were not in the first wave of people who got into the Capitol building, but Dominic Pezzola was. Pezzola stole a shield from police officers. He threw it through the glass window, and that was one of the first entry points of all of the insurrectionists entering the Capitol building from Pezzola. While the insurrection was going on, Tarrio posted on social media to everybody, "Don't effing leave," he said the curse though, "don't effing leave, make no mistake, we did this." That is a post that Tarrio made, and I'm confident that the Department of Justice prosecutors are going to say, you should listen to what Tarrio said. Don't effing leave. Make no mistake. We did this. This case is also going to feature a lot of testimony from a number of other Proud Boys who have already pled guilty to seditious conspiracy, obstruction, and other crimes. For example, the leader of the North Carolina Proud Boys, who was originally a defendant in this case, pled guilty. So we're going to have a number of leadership of the Proud Boys, which certainly more of the Proud Boys than this occurred with the Oath Keepers. More Proud Boys have flipped already, and so we're going to see a number of them testify against the current defendants here, Tarrio and Pezzola and the others who I had mentioned as well. The trial is expected to last approximately 6 weeks, and again, the charges are seditious conspiracy, obstruction, and lots of the other felony charges that the insurrectionists have been charged with. And this follows, of course, the Oath Keepers' leadership being found guilty of seditious conspiracy, and then all 5 members of the Oath Keepers a few weeks back being found guilty of obstruction, facing serious, real serious, and stiff sentences coming up at their sentences, at their sentencing. Each of those counts, 20 years for seditious conspiracy, 20 years for obstruction, and some of the other counts carried with it 5 or 10 years. So Oath Keepers likely going to go to jail for the rest of their lives when sentencing occurs, or certainly for at least over a decade and probably more. We'll see the longest sentences there than we've seen so far in terms of insurrectionists. And so undoubtedly people like Tarrio and the other Proud Boys who are on trial here, Nordian, Biggs, Rel, Pezzola, are undoubtedly confronted with the situation. Now, is anybody going to turn? Is anybody going to take a deal right now? Whoever takes the first deal is likely to get the lightest sentence and likely to get some benefits from the Department of Justice. But that is what they are facing down now, as all of their efforts to file motions to dismiss and motions to dismiss to change the venue, and all of these things have been denied. Just to remind you of how successful the Department of Justice prosecutions have been, they nearly have close to 500 guilty pleas or successful prosecutions at this point. They've charged about 1,000 people, and they're just going through their list and knocking these out, and they've been essentially 100% before the juries in getting convictions. Think about that. 100% success rate in front of juries in getting convictions on the cases that have gone to trial thus far against the January 6th insurrectionists. So we will keep you posted here. We're going to be following the Proud Boys terrorist trial on the MeidasTouch Network. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your support. And in addition to hitting the subscribe button now, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We have lots of great exclusive content you can only get at our Patreon, but most importantly, help grow this independent media platform. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So please make sure you check out our best-selling shirt and our best-selling gear, the unapologetically pro-democracy gear. And hey, while you're at it, make sure you check out my favorite shirt and one of our most famous designs, "It wasn't rigged, you're just a loser," at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.